Hi. Hello, everybody, and welcome to another lesson of the Bad Website Club free web. No, not free web development, free JavaScript bootcamp. See, I'm a little on autopilot today. Hope we're all doing well. I love to see coming in. Hello, Sean, Jane, Berke. I hope I said your name right. I'm so sorry. Nikki, Philip, Nikita, good morning, good afternoon, good evening. We are now starting our, fourth project. So see, 1, 2, 3, fourth project in the JavaScript bootcamp from curriculum from Free Code Camp. Let's do a couple things, but I want to hear how's learning JavaScript going. I'd love to hear like what some of the parts that you find frustrating, some of the parts that you find really invigorating, motivating. By the way, Jess, it's going to be just me today. Jess will be back tomorrow. Everything's fine. Just had to take care of some stuff. Yeah, let's get y'all some links if you're joining in for the first time. Hi, welcome. My name's Ramon. My friend Jess and I are running these boot camps. If you want to find out more, here's a link to badwebsite.club where you will find the schedules. You'll find a Google Calendar with all of the lessons. Essentially, we're streaming every day at this time. Here's a link to the Discord channel if you would like to join. And finally, because I forgot to mention this yesterday, if you're joining, please make sure to abide by our code of conduct. We're expecting you to abide by it by joining the stream. If you see anything out of sorts, please let either Jess or myself know, and we'll take care of it. And if you want to catch all of the recordings, they're on youtube.com/@badwebsiteclub. One of the recordings for the form validator, I think it got fixed. I'm going to check on it after this lesson, but let's go right into it. Today is going to be a relatively short one-off lesson, which I'm excited about. And what we're going to be doing is talking about dates. And if you've talked to any experienced programmers, you might have gotten the impression that dates are scary, complicated. What's the word? Scary, complicated, brittle, and everything's okay. There is a bit of a learning curve to working with dates, and there can sometimes be inconsistencies because essentially when we're sending data across the internet, dates need to be represented in a way that can be understood on one end, on one computer, and another computer. But the problem is sometimes those computers can be in different countries. One is in the United States and one is in Chile, for example. And in Chile, dates are formatted differently. And by formatted, I mean written out in human readable form than in the United States. For example, in the United States, dates are formatted with the month first, then the date of the month, and then the year. Whereas in Chile, for example, it's the date of the month first, then the month, and then the year. So these inconsistencies can make working with dates a little bit more difficult, but JavaScript has a built-in way of working with dates, which is what we're going to be looking at today. Let me drop y'all a link into the chat of what we'll be working on. And if you have any questions, of course, or any comments, this is interactive as always, please hop in and make yourselves known, please. So cool. This is what we're going to be building. We see we've got today's date in day, month, year. And I have a drop down here and I can switch it around. So this is year, month, day. Cool. And month, day, year, hours, minutes. Because yes, a date in JavaScript, I know this sounds a little bit counterintuitive. It does include a time in it. And you'll see what I mean in just a moment. So let's start coding. First thing to note is that all of the HTML and CSS is already written for us. So let's take a look at what we have. So we've got, our website here. We've got our head, which kind of seem pretty familiar, I'd say. But the HTML I want to take a look at real quick. So there's our H1. We've got an SVG. You might have heard of these before. This is a vector graphic, and it represents this calendar that you see here. But this lesson is not about SVGs. Neither was a web development bootcamp. So I'm just going to skip past that. But essentially, SVGs are code to represent images in vector graphics instead of like individual pixels. Anyway, we've got a divider here, which I would assume is this yellow part here. And here we go. We've got a div class dropdown container, a select, which is that dropdown we see there, with the ID of date options and the name date options. Cool. We got 3 options. the value for each of which is DDMMYYY, YYYMMDD, and MMDDYYHM. Philip's asking, what do the path elements do? That was the SVG stuff that I was talking about before. It lets us define how this SVG or vector graphic is drawn. I'm not going to be covering that here. If you're curious, I'll send out a link at the end for SVG graphics. Cool. Then we've got another SVG here to have this little triangle, and you're going to see some path stuff to draw that triangle essentially. Again, not something we are concerned about. Jane's asking, is it a good practice to name the ID, to have name and ID the same? I'm sorry, Jane. I'm going to give a very annoying answer. Yes, ideally, but you're not always going to see it. That's due to the fact that, let me scroll down here. Here we go. They correspond to different things. The name of an input is going to represent what data is sent to the form when it is submitted. Now you might notice that there's no form here. That's okay. ID, on the other hand, is going to correspond to our labeling. Well, no, it's not that it doesn't matter, Jane. It does matter in a way when we're working with interacting with that HTML, the form, and the JavaScript of it. So it could be, I find it good to be consistent, but I also think it's a good idea to know which one is which and what they're for. This name corresponds to what data will be sent out, and the ID is used with a label that would ideally be used for accessibility. But again, not what we're working with today. Just one more thing I want to point out here. We have a P element, the paragraph, with the ID of current date. Cool. CSS, honestly, friends, I'm not going to spend too much time on it. We've got some variables, pretty cool. We've got our color, background color, and we style our container accordingly. I really just want to make it clear here that, hey, there's some CSS. Super cool. If you're curious to understand how it works, definitely invite y'all to go through it. But today we're doing JavaScript. So first thing we're going to be doing is declaring a new variable called current date paragraph. And assign it to be, and see, we're already getting a little bit familiar here. We're going to get element by ID. We're going to store in it the element of current date. Now you might notice I don't put the hashtag there. Just a reminder, if we're using query selector, we use the hashtag. But if we're going for a specific element by its ID, then we don't use the hashtag. Cool. Let's check our code. And looks good. We'll pat ourselves on the back, pat, and we'll keep going. Next, we're going to declare another variable to get the date options select element. I might shorten that variable myself because it's quite long and I'm prone to typos. ID date options. Amazing. Does it look good? It does. Pat. And this is stuff we've done before. So let's keep going. And now we come into our new concept, which is a constructor. Now, if you're coming from other programming languages, you might think of constructors as what you declare when you declare a class, and it's sort of related, but what we're doing here is making a date. So we're going to use this constructor function to create a date object. And that date object, when created, by default, gives us the current date. So I'm going to try this code here. Const current date equals new date. Now, one thing you might notice is this keyword new. Now, when we have constructors in JavaScript, we need to say if you want to instantiate or make a new object from that constructor, you use this new keyword. So we'll say const current date equals new date. Console log current date. And I'm going to open up our console here so we can see what we have. So right now we got a new date, and that date is Tuesday, February 27th, 2024, 10 past 6 p.m. in this time zone, which is GMT plus 1 hour, which is the time zone that I'm in, the Central European time zone. Now, if you try this in your computer, this is probably going to be adjusted to your time zone, and this is being interpreted by your browser. Cool. So for Jane, for example, it's Tuesday, February 20th, 11 in the morning, GMT -6, so Central Standard Time, which means you, Jane, are 7 hours behind me. Can I do math? Yes, I can do math. Cool. Now, for the curious among us, what happens if we remove this new part? David Webb says, hi, how you doing? All good here. Thank you for joining. We're learning a little bit of JavaScript. So what happened here? Console log current date. I'm sort of in the future. Yeah, still gives us the current date. Now, I would assume that with other constructors, this can give us trouble. So for the safe side, and I'm going to preface this by saying I don't know why yet, but we're going to find out in the Q&A. We want to leave in that new just in case. Cool. So what do I want to do in this exercise? So we want to create a new const. Date, sign it, new date. Cool. Monica says, does the new make the constant variable refresh with whatever's current? No, not quite. It's going to create a new object based from the template of a date, right? So date is an existing template of an object. We know that it'll have like a bunch of methods or functions that we'll see in the future steps. And so it's going to make a new date from the recipe, the template, the class, the prototype of a date. And we'll expand this a little bit more in the Q&A, but this is a great question. So I'm going to bookmark it and we'll go back to it. Anyway, we've made a new date. Does it look good? Pass, pat, pat. And we'll keep going. See, that's what I was talking about. So we have a bunch of methods that we can call on a date. So one of them, for example, is get date. We're going to make a new variable, call it day, and it's going to call the method get date on our date. So date.getDate. date. Let's console log day. So that gives us 27. It gives us the calendar, the calendar month, the date in the month of that date. So today's the 27th. We can use this get date method to get the date in a date. Looks good? We'll pat pat. I bet we're going to do it with month next. Yep. So const, we'll call it month equals date.get month. Just for testing purposes, let's month. Now this is where things get a little bit confusing. This gives me a 1. Now we would expect it to be 2 because right now it's February. It's not January. Now this is a bit of a quirk. This is a bit of an unusual thing that this does. It actually gives us a number between 0 and 11. I'm going to tell you all right away. I don't know why. But the number this returns is 0 based, which seems familiar if you're thinking about like indexes. So whenever we want to get the month from a date, we need to add 1. Oh, Jane says, oh no, the index thing again. Yeah, it is the index thing again, and I do apologize. Kirsten says, I believe the month should be referred to as cursed. Very well put. So yeah, when we work with months, they are 0 based. There we go. Look good? Yes. Pat, pat. Let's keep going. Finally, we'll use get full years. A full year. So const year is going to be set to date.get full year. And we're going to console log year. And I think we can sort of guess as to what we're going to see here. 2024. Fantastic. Check our code. Pat, pat. Let's keep going. Next, we're going to get the hours. Same thing again. So const hours, date.get hours, and we'll console log those hours. And we might. No, we don't get 2023. Yep. So we can see by calling date.get hours, we get 18 because it is 6 in the afternoon here. Cool. Let's check our code. Looks good. Pat, pat. And let's keep going. Next, we'll use get minutes. So const minutes equals date.get minutes. Console log minutes. Whoopsie. It's currently 16 minutes past 6 p.m. Check our code. Pat, pat. We're just blazing through these. All right. Now we're going to create a new variable called formatted date. And its value is going to be assigned to template literals. Now, one thing to bear in mind, when we work with dates, when we want to represent them, we need to take a date and modify modify its attributes, day, month, year, hours, minutes, seconds, time zone, etc., in a format that we can read, that's human readable. So, as I said before, right? Like here in Europe, you do day, month, day/month. Let me try this again. Day/month/year. In the United States, for example, you do month/day/year. Yes. So we're going to take those elements and format them in a way that is, again, human readable. So, pat, pat. Let's keep going. So inside our template literal, we're going to add an embedded expression. That's the $ with the curlies. So inside here, we're going to have our day. If I console log that, formatted day, you know what? I'm going to copy this because I feel like I'm going to be using it a lot. Let's take a look at the console. Oh, wait, I can't read. I mean, I can't write. There we go. I wrote formatted day instead of formatted date. So cool. So far, it's 27. We knew to expect that. Everything looks good. Pat, pat. Let's keep going. Cool. So just as an information, as you know, this bootcamp completely free. Free Code Camp is also free, but they're a they're a registered nonprofit, and they depend on donations. So you're going to see this pop up. If you want to, feel free to throw them a couple of dollars every month. But please don't feel pressured. You can come back later and do it. That's what I did. I'm doing it on a different account. So I'm going to click on Ask Me Later for now. Cool. So after that day variable or expression, we're going to add a dash followed by another embedded expression, so $curlies, that includes the month variable. Hold on. This needs to be inside my template literal. There we go. If I console log, we got 27-2. Perfect. Let's check our code. Looks good. Pat, pat. Let's keep going. And after our month, another dash. We'll add the year. That looks 27-2-2024. Perfect. Pat, pat. Let's keep going. Oh. In this step, we're going to add a console log that looks at it for us. Well, well done, us. It's a free step. Pat, pat. Let's keep going. All right, so now on our current date paragraph, we're going to set the text content property to be that formatted date. Cool, so now we can see 27-2-2024. And we'll remove the console log, and we're good. Pat, pat. Kirsten's asking, why don't we get the leading 0 on the month? Great question. Let's console.log month real quick. Just going to keep your question highlighted here. So as you can see, we don't get it. However, what happens if I do type of month? You'll see that it's a number. And in JavaScript, by default, numbers are never formatted with leading zeros. If I do date.getMonth, you're going to see it's a number. So the reason we don't get a leading zero is because of that. Because getMonth gives us a number as opposed to a string, which is what you would expect as a way to have leading zeros. There is a way to format it so that it can have leading zeros. And I don't know if we're going to do that in this exercise. I hope we do. If not, we got some time. Anyway, looks good. Let's move on. We've got a new event listener. I'm very excited about this. So instead of click, which we've seen before, we're instead going to have an event listener for when an element's value changes. The change event is going to be triggered in our example when we change the value of our drop-down menu. So let's do just that. Date options, select element. Such a long one. Monica's saying, can we review step 90 from the music player? Absolutely. I've noted that and we'll come back to it. Okay. Change. And of course, we need our callback. So when it's change happens, we'll have an empty arrow function. Cool. We're good, right? You should attach the add event listener method to the... Okay, I must have made a typo. Oh yeah, I did, didn't I? Add event listener. My bad. That looks good, right? Pat. Cool. Let's keep going. So when a user makes a selection from the drop-down menu, the function should get the user's value and display the date in that chosen date format. Right, that's what we saw in the example. So in order to do that, we're going to have what is essentially an if statement for every value that we pick. But instead of having several if, else if in a row, we're going to be using a new thing called a switch statement. I want to take a brief moment to take a look at this. In this case here, we're calling a switch statement on a variable called day of week. So we're checking. In the case that day of week is equals to 1, we do this, console log it's Monday. Break means, okay, we're done with case 1, get out of here. In case 2, it'll console log, hey, it's Tuesday. And break, get out of here. For any of the other, so it does the same for case 3, case 4, case 5, and then leaves out case 6 and case 7 and says, okay, but for any other date, it's the weekend. That's the default. How would we write this so just here. Look, I make typos sometimes. How would we write this with an if statement? Now let's just take a minute to do that. So if day of week is 3 equals to 1, then we console log it's Monday. I'm not going to put much of an effort here. Day of week is 3 equals to 2. Console log it's Tuesday. We keep doing else if, and at the end for the default, we just do else. Console log, it's the weekend. Now, I don't know about y'all. This is a lot of typing. If, else if, and I'm writing day of week a lot. But if I know that I'm going to be dealing with only day of week, then it makes sense to use a switch statement to have it just for one. So these are equivalent ways of writing this code. This one's a little simpler. Now, I'm going to preface a question that y'all might have. Which one is better? Why would I use one over the other? It comes down, just like with arrow functions and function functions, down to preference and familiarity. I would recommend learning both, finding out which one works for you. When you work in teams with other software developers, you might find code bases that prefer one, that might prefer the other. So the switch statement, which does come from, does exist in other programming languages as well, is good to know. Okay, let's write our first switch statement. And the expression we're going to use is date options select element dot value. Now the value, remember, this is being called inside our event listener. So on the event of change, so when the value in the dropdown changes, we will do a switch statement on that value. Hey, y'all know what I like. Just console log that and see how it looks. Oh, forgot my curlies. There we go. So let's try it out. YYYMMDD. I'm going to switch it to another. MMDDYYYYHM. And you see it there? Now you might be wondering, hold on, where's this value coming from? DDMMYYYY. It's coming from, let me just hop back to the HTML. Here we go. So here's our select. That's the drop-down menu. Notice each option has the content, which is what we see here, and the value. So in our JavaScript, what we're doing is catching that value when it's been changed. And we're going to do different things depending on which value we have. Excuse me. Pat, pat. Let's keep going. Cool. So we're going to have a case, as we said before. So like in case we have one format or another format, we're going to do different things. So our first case here is going to be YYYY-MM-DD. And for every case is always followed by a colon. So when in our next step, we're going to write the code that is going to run when the value of that dropdown is YYYY-MMDD. What am I missing? YYYMMDD. Oh, see, I should read the whole thing, shouldn't I? So inside the case, we'll set the current date paragraph dot text content to formatted date. Okay. Not much happens. Let's keep going. Pat, pat. I bet we're going to change that formatted date in the next steps. Cool. So we're going to use, in our expression, we're going to call split. We've used split before, I believe. Yes, we have. In using dash as a separator. But why take my word for it that we've done it before? Let's console log formatted date dot split with the dash as a separator. See what that gives us. All right, there we go. So what split does is splits a string into an array of substrings and separates those based on this separator. So when it detects a dash, remember it's 27-2-2024, which is what we created here, day-month-year. Ooh, Eric, I got your question. Give me one sec. Right, day-month-year. It separated that string into 27, 2, and 2024. Cool. Oh, and look, now it's that array. Nice. Okay, Eric. How are you supposed to know to use value? It didn't say in the instruction, or is this always the case? If we're dealing with an interactive element, then we know it's the case. I'm going to come back to this question because I want to try with a different type of input, okay? But I've bookmarked the question. Let me do this. Cool. Pat, pat. Let's keep going. Cool. Okay, what we're going to do next is reverse that array. So arrays have a method called reverse, that what it does is it reverses that array essentially. So instead of 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, it gives us 5, 4, 3, 2, 1. So we're going to call formatted date.split.reverse. And hey, oh, actually we can select here year, month, day, and we can see now it's year, then month, then date. Cool. Amazing. Pat, pat. So now we're going to join that array using this dash as the separator. This is quite wonky, and I want to look at it in Python Tutor in just a minute. But let's take a look here at first. So now this formatted date has been split into an array. Those numbers have been reversed, and then they have been rejoined into a string. So we have 2024, which is the year, the 2, which is the month, and 27, which is the day. That looks good and all, but let's hop into Python Tutor. And JavaScript, please. Thank you very much. Okay. Now let's take some stuff here. I'm going to bring over some of that code, if I may. I'm going to borrow all of this stuff. There we go. Then const split equals formatted date dot split this. And const reversed is going to be equals to split dot reverse. And then const joined is going to be reversed dot join. I just want to take a minute to like step through each of these things and see what's going on. Oh, I did it on the first try without errors. Love it. So we've got a few variables here. We know them already. So our formatted date is 27-2-2024. Then I'm going to split it, which remember splits it into an array of 27, 2, and 2024. Then we're going to call split.reverse and assign it to reversed. So reversed is now assigned to 2024-2-27. Then we're going to take that reverse string and assign it to, we're going to take that reversed array, join it using dashes as a separator. So it's going to take each member of that array, each string, and join it into a big string where each member of the array is joined with a dash. So that gives us 2024-2-27. I recommend going through this a couple times just to let it sort of like play around with it, get weird, as Jess says, so that it can sink in as what we're doing. But I like, as you saw, I found it helpful to like split it up into a series of steps, which when we can chain, you might have saw the wording chain here. We called formatted date dot split and take that split and reverse it, and then take that reversal and then join it. So it's like step, step, step. How does this look? Cool. Pat, pat. Let's keep going. Next, we're going to have our next case. So when we're done working with one case, remember we have to write break. So what that break says, hey, we're done with our switch. We can keep going. Get out of here. Cool. Pat, pat. So we're going to add another case after that with this, which I'm going to copy paste. I'm going to be honest with y'all. There we go. Inside that case, we're going to set text dash, hold on, current 8 paragraph dot text content There we go. To be have the value of empty template literals. And we'll have the break there at the end of our case. Now, what happens if I pick it now? Remember, we are setting it to be empty template literals. Let's find out. It seems like it disappears, but the content in there is now an empty string because it's an empty pair of template literals. Don't worry, this is not what we want because in the next step, we'll be expanding that to actually format the date like this. So we'll do a pat, and we'll keep going. So we will set the text content here to be month-day-year space. Is it a space? I want it to be a space. Please be a space. Uh-oh. There is no space. My apologies. It's all dashes. It's all dashes? Huh. Well, let's try it out. So, yeah, I'm going to write it by hand because we have time. Month dash day dash year dash hours space hours space minutes. Cool. 27 to 27 24 dash 18 hours 37 minutes. I feared as much. There is a space. My bad. Instead of that dash I added here, I'm going to put in a space. Try it again. That looks better. Nikita, what an interesting observation. I've noticed it's quite common and widespread routine to validate input, convert it to the array, do something, and convert it back to a string or number for output. And JavaScript reminds me a lot of Microsoft Excel. I mean, in a way, what you're doing in Excel is a lot of automation that is not too different from programming. I would even argue it is programming. But I say that as someone who's never done a lot of Excel, so I don't know. Cool, so this works. We'll pat ourselves on the back, pat, and we'll keep going. So remember the default. We're going to add our own default here. So remember, that's sort of the else of our switch statement. So by default, we will set the value of current date paragraph to content to be formatted date. And we're done. Now you might be wondering, hold on, what about the case for day, month, year? That's since this isn't the case, and since this isn't the case, the default or the else is falling back to this one here, DDMMYY. But you're probably wondering, but hold on, what is formatted date again? Well, it's date, month, and year. So there you go. Let's try it out a little. So we got year, month, day, year, hours, minutes. And see, by default, it comes back to date, month, year. Let's check our code. Pat. Did we finish? We finished, didn't we? We did. All right. Well, we're done about 20 minutes early. I want to encourage you all to please ask questions. As you can see here, Bootcamp is free. Free Code Camp is free. They're a registered nonprofit. They depend on donations. If you can, please do feel free to throw them a couple of dollars a month. But if you don't feel pressured to do it right now, you could come back later. Okay. I would ask us to please let's do some Q&A. So if you have any questions, please feel free to start firing them out. And I'll go through the questions we have. And just to preface, homework. Yesterday, we left out a lot of the music player. So if you haven't finished it yet, my homework that I would recommend is keep going there. Tomorrow, we'll be doing our first certification project. So if you remember, there are 5 of these in the boot camp, and you need to do all 5 of them to get your certification from Free Code Camp. Tomorrow, we'll be going together as to how we would approach building our palindrome checker and talking a little bit about like breaking problems down, uh, divide and conquer, which is a very it's a technique that I believe a lot in for like approaching difficult problems in software engineering. And yeah, so no homework from today, other than if you want to go ahead and try solving the palindrome checker, I would highly encourage you to. Maybe you can come in and help me solve it tomorrow. Yeah, thank you all. Let's do some Q&A now. Okay. So Philip asked, what do the path elements do? And I do want to take a brief look at that. So I'm going to open up MDN. For some reason, my browser got reset, so I have to do all of the zoom in setup thing again. So you're asking what the path element does. So what they do is allow us to define a shape that will be drawn in SVG. So for example, look, I'm going to be honest. I don't do a lot of SVG, but this draws us a heart. So what if I change it? Can I edit this? Ah, cool. Yes, I can. What if I make this 120? Okay. See? Like, so by defining these values here, we can do vector graphics. I'm not very good at vector graphics, but that's what they do. I hope that answers your question. Right. Yes. Monica asked, does the new make the constant variable refresh with whatever's current? I wonder if MDN has an article on new. It does. Cool. Now, this is going to be a little bit beyond the scope of what we did today, but I just want to take a brief moment to express what this does. Here's a function called car. Now, you might notice this looks a little bit different from the functions we've had in the past. First of all, it's capitalized, and it's got 3 parameters. And what it does, there's no return, you might have noticed. It calls this dot make equals make, this dot model equals model, this dot year equals year. When we define a new variable called car1 and set it to be new car with eagle, that thing, and 1993, it's going to create a new object called car1. You can see it says object, and that object has a make as a property, a model, and a year. We can also manipulate our car. Car.1 dot the year is equals to 2024. Look at what happens now. I've modified my car object. This is the exact same thing that happens with a date. So there is a function called date that does a bunch of like this dot month, this dot day, this dot year, and sets it to be the current date. So it instantiates a new object. Hope that answers your question. Oh, can we review step 90 from the music player? Yes, of course. Step 90. Okay. So here at this point, we notice that the album art and the HTML and songs in the user data have changed. We've swapped out the original songs for shorter ones that you can use to test out your app in the upcoming steps. So we need to check if there's a next stop to play. So when the song, and here we have an event listener for when the song has ended. So in the audio, remember that's the audio API that's playing the music. It's saying, hey, in the event that the song has ended, we will run this code. So we've got our current song index function, and we're going to assign that variable. Sorry, we're going to assign that value to the variable current song index. Then we will create a new variable called next song exists, which will contain the value true or false depending on the next song exists, which I think I actually need to write the code that does it, right? Missing initializer. Oh, right. Hold on, let me put a value in here. Right. So how do we check that the next song exists? Now we're getting the current song index. So this index of the song in the array that we're currently listening to. In order to check, and we can use console log a little bit for this. Console log user data.songs. We'll get current song index. So we'll console log both of these for just the moment. Does it work? Okay, hold on. I made a mistake. So we've got a couple songs here. We got one song, two songs, three songs, four songs, five songs. Now the current song index is -1. The reason for that is, of course, because no song is currently playing. But if I start playing now, cool. I need the song to end. So when it ends, it'll console log the current song index. And if it is, it should be like the index of the song that we're currently listening to. The point of what we want to do here is check, okay, does the next song exist? So the way to check that, I'm just going to put length here to simplify my code a little bit, is the length of the array of songs is 5. The last song is going to have an index of 4 because there's 0, 1, 2, 3, 4. Those are the indexes of all the 4 songs. So how do we make sure that we're at the last song? How do we make sure that the index is the last index? We could check, for example, we know how many songs there are. Current song index is 3 equals to 4. That's the index of the last song. But that's not going to work for other lists of songs. So what we want to do is get user data.songs.length. But remember that the length goes from 1 to 5. There are 5 songs. So we want to check that the current song index is equals to user data songs length minus 1. That's the last possible index. If there's one song, then the last possible index is 0, length minus 1. There's 2 songs, then the last possible index is length 2 minus 1, 1. Does that look good? No, hold on. What am I doing wrong? Set it to a next song again. If the last index of the song array. Oh, hold on. I did this completely wrong. Here I'm checking that it's the last song. But of course, we want to check that there are still songs. I mean, one way we could do that is check that the index is not equals to user data songs length minus 1, or that the last index is bigger than the current song index. So here we're checking, hey, is the last index bigger than the current song index? If so, there are still songs. There's still a next song. Thanks for bearing me with that. Let's pat. Yeah. I hope that answers I hope that helps. So we got one more question for Eric. Hey, folks, if you have questions, like feel free to fire them up. Otherwise, we can just go ahead and chill for the rest of the day. Cool. So you were asking, how are you supposed to know to use value? It didn't say in the instruction, or is this always the case? So let's go back to where we used value, because I want to make 100% sure. Like, I believe you. I just want to make 100% sure that I'm not making a mistake. Oh, hold on. Jane, I hear you. I'm just going to come back to step 91 after Eric's question, just for fairness' sake. Where do we use that? We use it in like step 15. Nope. Step 16. Nope. Oh, wait, in the switch statement. My bad. Yeah, it just tells us to use date option select element dot value. Now, if I go to MDN real quick and I put in value, the value is a primitive. Now we're talking about values in general. Go to element. Yeah, this looks good. Doesn't have a value. Let's scroll down to V is for value. Hold on. Value, 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 value. That's a lot of values. Get attribute matches. Okay. Scroll all the way down. Keep on scrolling. Keep on scrolling. Well, I don't know where it's defined, but essentially because it's an input element, we should have access to its value. I know what I wanted to do. I wanted to add another input. Bear with me. Okay, hold on. Input type text. Name MSG for message. The message. Boom. So we've got a little text value there. Now what we're going to do is instead of calling it add event listener on the select element, let's get a const. I'm just going to call it input, y'all. Input equals document dot. Eric, I don't know what you're apologizing for. This is great. Get element by ID. So for message, so we're going to call the add event listener on that change instead. So console log input dot value. Cool. Hello. Oh, come on. Why are you making me look silly? Input add event MSG. Oh, sorry. It changes when you unfocus. My bad. Hello, friends. And when I click outside, it changes. Yeah. And pals. So the value is going to give us access to that input value at the time. And that input can be a select, it can be a radio button, it can be a checkbox. Okay, Eric, I hope that answers your questions. Now we're going to come back to, I would like to know why it changes, please. It accepts the answer, but then completely transforms it in step 91. I had used attorney operator after loads of thinking, and then it disappeared forever. Cool, let's take a look. So we're going back to the music. Going back to the music. So in step 91, we have this one. Okay. Jane, I'm going to tell you something with my hand on my heart. I don't know why this changed, but that's not what we're here to find out. Let's look at, I don't know why they changed it. I couldn't tell you that. That's got to be a decision that's made by the Free Code Camp folks. But let's look at it semantically here. So we've got our user data song. We're going to get user data songs. We're going to check, hey, for the user data song, the next song, let me try that again. Get the next song from the current one. If it exists, then it's not going to be undefined. Well, hey, let's make an array. I'll call it R because I'm feeling piratey today. 1, 2, 3. So, console log R 0. Let's just step through it real quick. Cool. Oh, you know what? I'm going to do it lower down because I need. Right. So, why do I do this with numbers? I should do this with words. Apple, banana, cantaloupe. There we go. So, first member of the array, apple. Second member, Index 1 is banana. Cantaloupe is the third one at position 2. Now, when we try to check for the one that's after that, like 3, it's going to show undefined. And the reason for that is that, well, there's nothing here. So the value is undefined. Can we make the... I'm so sorry. Sorry. There we go. You should see it there. Let me try it again. So apple, banana, cantaloupe, undefined. You still can't see the console? No, you should see the console. What you can't see is the code. My bad. But yeah, that should show it. Right? So if we try to access a member of the array that's beyond the length, it's going to give us undefined. Now what that means here, let's check it. Userdata.songs. And accessing the one that's current song index plus 1, that's going to get us the next song. If that song is not undefined, i.e., we're getting one that's in that array, then a next song exists. But again, why it changed from the last step to this one is probably a bug in the free code camp curriculum. They'll probably get fixed in the next iteration. Jane's asking, why do they asked us to do it different? As I said, like I suspect it's a bug, like a mistake, like a human error. Is my suspicion as to why? Because yeah, here we're doing it. Hey, is the user song's length -1 bigger than the current song index? Which is the same thing. Are we still inside our array? Like semantically, these two pieces of code, this one and the one, if I press back in my browser, this and this still give us the same, which is, hey, does the next song exist? I believe that there's an inconsistency, and that's what causes this to be different. Sorry about that being confusing. Yeah, this is still a Boolean because look, Jane's asking, does step 91 contain a Boolean? It does because look, we're doing a comparison. And hey, what better way to check than with my good buddy, console log? I don't know, 11. This. Oh. So here I'm saying, hey, check that song at index 12 is not undefined. It's saying false. Hey, console log user data songs 12. It's going to give us undefined. 1. Okay, I'll tell you what. Const index equals 1. So index. So cool. This one exists, but 11 gives us, I didn't type that correctly. There we go. Undefined and false. It does not exist. This is the key that makes it a Boolean. Heck, type of. You can see. What I've done is I've wrapped this all in smooth brackets and checked its type, and check it out. It's a Boolean. Okay. Wow. Those were great questions. Thanks, everybody. I think that does it for today. Tomorrow we'll be back for the palindrome checker. Thank you all for bearing with me today. It was good fun. Take it easy. As Jess always says, the most important homework is to take it easy. Remember, we are learning loads and a lot at once. So go easy on yourselves. And I'll see you in the next one. Bye, everybody.